Hi, this is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer of Community Culture Showcase. And fall has suddenly arrived, rather cool but beautiful outside. And we have some really lovely fall events here in this part of the community. We have some things we want to talk about that are going on in Groton and neighboring New London. So I have with me my guest who's involved with both events, Michael Whitehouse, who's representing the Groton Business Association, and his many, 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 many other hats that he wears.
I do have many hats.
You do. So tell us a little bit about you, Michael. How'd you get, I understand you're here relatively new, so how'd you come here?
I moved here in 2014.
Okay.
And we had an exhaustive search process to decide where to live. My wife changed jobs, and our old apartment was tied to her old job.
Oh, okay.
And we had 30 days to be somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
So she knew the property managers of the place we live now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only place we could get approved and moved into fast enough. And we moved into Groton, and I knew so little. I didn't find out there was a submarine base here until I already got here.
Okay.
So like we'd vacationed to Mystic once or twice.
All right.
But that's pretty much all we knew about it. Then we landed here, and fortunately, we were lucky and discovered it was a great place to be.
Yes.
And I've really enjoyed it. But I'm I like to say, a compulsive networker.
Mm-hmm.
So when I come to an area, I'm very active with the Chamber of Commerce, find places to volunteer. I'm actually in the early stages of writing a book about networking.
Oh,
because I realize that not everyone can move to an area and 2 years later be getting interviewed on television.
Exactly.
And be working activities. But yeah, so once I came to the area, I started discovering the Groton Business Association and other groups like that and places I could get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And actually the Fall Festival, which we'll be talking about, was one of the first places I really got exposed to a lot of good connections in the Groton area.
Okay.
Because it is a very local festival with a lot of local vendors there.
Right, local businesses and stuff. And it's been going on for several years.
Yes,
that's
the 11th year.
And where is it physically located?
It's at Pequannock Plains Park.
Okay.
Which is right across from Grosso Tech.
Okay, so for people to get familiar with the actual physical location, big open space.
Yep.
Big open. And do you have all the vendors that you need, or
I believe we're still taking more.
Okay.
Because it's a big space.
Yes.
But we have about 110 vendors.
Okay.
I know all the food vendors; those are set up because those want to make sure we're not conflicting. You don't have
course.
3 places of pizza and 2 places with hot dogs, and that's it. Right. Want to make sure there's variety. But in terms of the other vendors, there's so many. There's a lot of crafters, a lot of local crafters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of thing. If you have 3 local jewelry makers, they're all different because they're all it's jewelry, but
it's different.
Not all the same.
Yes.
But yeah, we got a huge variety. And one thing I love about it is if you compare it to, say, the Big E or the Woodstock Fair, which I went to recently, those are great events. There's lots going on. They have big stage productions and all the rest.
Right.
But it's, you could go to the Big E and then the Woodstock Fair, and if you spin around 3 times and get dizzy, you don't remember which one you're at because there's not much that's local. It's the same kind of entertainment amusements companies that go from one to the next, setting up the same rides and the same games, and a lot of the same vendors with the roofing and the siding and the headlight polish and whatnot. They're doing the demos, which I always enjoy watching because as a salesman myself, I always enjoy seeing good salesmanship. But it tends to be a lot of that, not much local. Because it costs a lot of money to bring in, the national musical acts and have the various things with prizes and whatnot. But the Groton Fall Festival is much more of a local event. So it's got great vendors selling really interesting products, but it's a lot of local vendors. For example, last year I met my chiropractor there. I had very severe sciatica a year ago, and I met a very good chiropractor who took care of me. But it's just those kinds of your friends and neighbors businesses, not just people coming down from Hartford or Boston or Michigan or whatever.
Right.
So it's a very good chance to meet the local vendors, local businesses in the area, and also this being an election year, most, I would hope all, of the local candidates are going to be there. So candidates for state rep, for state senate.
Oh, okay.
I don't think the candidates for president will be there.
Yeah.
But at least the candidates for state rep and state senate I expect to be there. The town council
Do you know that to be true? Or are you just hoping or
I
anticipating?
know last year
Okay.
when there was a town election,
Yes.
there were all the candidates, or both parties were represented
All right.
for town council.
Okay.
Not all the candidates, because there were 9 on each side.
Right.
But I think they had 4 or 5 from each side who were there, so you could talk to people and get a good feel. And I haven't seen the final vendor list, but I would expect that they should be there.
Okay. By the both parties,
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, because I mean, with 5 to 8,000 people who are in the district are going to be coming through, they really should be there.
Right.
Yeah, chances are the one who's going to win will be there if there's only one, but probably both if they're being wise. So it's a good chance to talk to the people who are representing us in Hartford.
Oh, absolutely.
Where you might not be able to get face to face with your state rep or state senator.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, there it's a good chance to ask them questions, give suggestions, find out what they stand for, find out what's going on.
Right. No,
I
it's
still don't know what's
and
going
it
on.
actually it's an important state senate race
Mm-hmm.
because the longtime state senator
Yep.
is retiring. So this is an open seat.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be interesting. And we at the station have been longtime supporters of the Fall Festival in Groton.
Mm-hmm.
We are physically located in Groton.
Yep.
But we also have been fairly active in local politics in the sense that we like to, and we do film debates. So if candidates we're actually going to have a debate, or we would encourage them to have a debate, we would be happy to film the debate, so that we're very much interested in getting our tentacles out there in the local Groton community. And we have, in this program, has always supported activities that are going on in Groton. So that's really quite important for us. So we're glad to hear that there might be some activity. We know that a number of nonprofits also are
Yep.
involved with this. I don't know, are they also members of the Groton Business Association?
Well, I mean, the standard for membership of the Groton Business Association is that you show up at the Groton Business Association.
That's it.
So it's not really a difficult group to be part of.
Okay.
Yeah, they meet every the third Thursday of every month
Okay.
in the morning at various locations around town.
Right.
And actually, the Groton Business Association is great. Another great way to get involved and to get to know the people who make things happen in Groton.
Sure.
And what's happening in Groton, because it's a free event.
Mm-hmm.
And like the last one was at the Cure Innovation Commons, which is
You're talking about the Groton Business Association meetings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which is the Innovation Commons are a very exciting thing happening in Groton
Yes.
that most people don't know about.
Yes. Why don't you tell us a little bit if you know?
Well, it originally it spawned out of Pfizer, but it's independent now.
Okay.
And it basically is innovation. What they are is it's an incubator
Okay.
for, I believe, primarily biotech companies, but technology companies, to give them a space to work in, common resources.
Right.
With a lot of those companies, 1, 2, 3 people. So instead of being off, by themselves, they get to be in an incubator. So they run into other people. That lets them network, share ideas.
Absolutely.
And it's down by the Marine Magnet School.
Okay. So
it's kind of hidden back there.
yes.
In fact,
yes.
they don't even really have a sign yet, although they will soon. But it's a great thing because it's like that's where the new jobs in the economy come from. People talk about creating jobs and job creators. Well, the job creators are these up and coming companies.
Yes.
It's not the multi-billion-dollar companies that hire 100,000 people and then lay 200,000 off. It's the 3-person startup that then hires a 4th and a 5th and a 6th and a 7th,
Right.
and then needs $1 million of fabrication work that they get from Willimantic, and that creates 7 more jobs, and that's how
Right.
jobs
It
get
builds on
created.
itself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So who's instrumental in creating this innovation center? Was it Pfizer itself? Or
Pfizer originally started. I don't know the full story.
Okay.
But yeah, originally Pfizer provided the space and did a lot of the funding, and then
Right.
over time the funding kind of dribbled down a bit because
Right.
they've been around for many, many years.
That a way to get the scientists to not all leave,
Right.
which has actually created, as I understand it, quite an exodus since some of the business went to Cambridge, Mass, and quite a number of the people who were selected to go to Cambridge, Mass, very few of them stayed behind, actually.
Yep.
Picked up and left, and then the question becomes: here I am, this highly educated scientist, a researcher, where am I going to go? Is it possible? I love this area because lots of people who are here, once they get here, I'm sure this is true going to be for you,
Yep.
you're never going to want to leave this area with the water and the sound and the fresh fish and all the kinds of variety that we have here. You don't want to leave. So then it's that crucial thing about what can I do next?
Yep.
I think that's a good thing for them to try and create this. Do you have any sense as to if there's a company out there or people out there who are listening and are interested in getting involved? Do you have any information about where they might go? Should they contact the Groton Business Association?
The Groton Business Association could definitely put them in touch. I'm pretty sure that Cure has a website.
Okay.
So if you were to search for the Cure.
Cure as in C-U-R-E. Just like it sounds.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't expect to be talking about it, so I don't have any notes about them.
Right.
So I know Cure is an acronym. I can't remember.
Doesn't matter. Is it considered a nonprofit?
That I'm not sure.
Okay, like cure.org versus cure.com.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
All right. Well, the internet is very cool.
Yeah.
So you just go Cure.
Yeah, I believe it is a
Connecticut,
nonprofit. I think they're saying that.
And there'll be something about it, some information.
Yeah, the Groton Business Association, they met there. We had a meeting at the Electric Boat. Where, we got a presentation on that. We had one at Avery Point. So all these places that really are crucial in how Groton operates.
Yes.
Their members get to meet people from there, hear what's happening. Because at Electric Boat, they talked about what the next 10-year plan looks like.
Right.
Which is kind of important in a small way for the community. And by small, I mean big.
Yes.
Yeah, so go to various. But then we also, one meeting was at Catherine M., which is a clothing store in downtown Mystic. So we meet at
different locations.
Stakeholders, large and small,
throughout
the community. But it's a great opportunity to.
Do you have to be a member of the Mystic Chamber to be a member of the Groton Business? You do not.
If you do business in some way between, they say they're river to river.
Okay.
So from the Thames River to the Mystic River.
Okay.
If you're in Groton, between those rivers, then
show up
then you are welcome to attend. And even if I work for Minuteman Press, we're technically based in New London, but we do a lot of business in Groton, so we're welcome there.
You're right. I have, I have been chamber members of different chambers around, and I know that I've gone to a couple of meetings of the Groton Business Association a couple of years back, and EB being one of the places that had a really nice presentation. But we have these enormous resources. I mean, EB, of course, is a giant, especially since Pfizer has cut away and cut away and cut away. But you're right, the future of the community is based on getting these great minds who did not leave, who want to stay, a little help in getting started. And I know that at different points in time, different of our state governors have been very much in pushing for this kind of idea. With the med stuff in Farmington, where the medical school, the dental school is, trying to get into the biomedical kinds of stuff to do innovation. Down here with the electric boat and the Pfizer stuff that's going on. And I live in Westerly, and through the largesse of, I don't think he's ashamed of saying it, Charles Royce, in coordination and cooperation with the state government, they are creating a satellite campus of the community college. And part of that, which is very visionary, is in fact to create associate degrees or some kind of certifications that are imperative for Electric Boat. So Electric Boat works with this organization, works with this community college and its other sponsors in creating a curriculum and a program that will lead the graduates then to have some good jobs. And of course, what Electric Boat has said, which I'm sure to some degree Pfizer was saying before it left, was that the workforce is not what we want. There's people here, some of them are educated, but they're not the people that we need for our workforce. So this tying together of major corporations with the government and with just somebody's personal largesse has created what I think for Westerly and for Southeast Connecticut, this kind of dynamo that will help to ensure good jobs coming to the community.
And some of the things with Electric Boat, especially, they're in a fairly specialized field.
Yes.
And they've got one customer.
Right.
So it's not like some other fields where there might be people with this experience or that experience. A lot of the skills they need are submarine building skills
Right.
that you wouldn't have gotten anywhere else unless you were building submarines.
Right.
So to some degree, it's not so much a matter of lack of education as it's a specific skill
Right.
that when they hire people, they need, which is great too, because it means people don't need to worry about, oh, I don't have that skill. Well, if you're smart enough to learn it, they'll
yours.
teach it to you because they know no one's got that skill unless you're building submarines already, in which case you already work for Electric Boat. So it's great to know. But I think it's really important now the smaller companies, because if Washington decides we're going to build one boat a year instead of 2 boats a year, well, that's one huge chunk of the economy that just sailed away.
Right.
And if you need to diversify, you never want to be a town, you never want to be a factory town or company town.
Right.
Because then...
Well, unfortunately, Groton was for many years a company town. And to a lesser extent, that has also had an impact in New London, being seen as, because Pfizer actually was also in New London, being seen as a company town. And we were talking off camera, but it's certainly interesting is that people, Groton, New London, only across the river. I mean, there actually is a ferry service that could take you across the river. I mean, we're not talking like big distances. Yet, we have had this mentality. And I think it's very much a New England mentality. Let's not just pick on Groton and New London, that people don't want to get together. They'd rather compete against each other. When, in fact, if you put your resources together, you could have a package that would benefit everybody.
Well, I don't think it's even necessarily a competition thing as a lack of familiarity. In my work, I work from Essex all the way to Westerly.
Right.
I always find it ironic that Westerly is the eastern extent of where I go. So I work from Essex to Westerly. So I work in all kinds of different. I work with the New London community. I work with Groton Community GBA, Groton Business Association, the Greater Mystic Chamber, the Eastern Connecticut Chamber, the Westerly Chamber, which is now the Ocean Community Chamber of Commerce. So I work with all these different groups, and when I started, I assumed, well, obviously the movers and shakers here will know the movers and shakers there. And I'd mention names of the people who everyone knows on the other side of the river, and they say, who's that? And suddenly I felt like in medieval times, before there was newspapers and radio, when the merchant would come from the next town, everyone would gather around to hear the news of what happened in the next town. And I started to feel like the traveling merchant, the traveling bard who was bringing the news. They're like, well, in New London they do this. And we could do this. And they're like, oh, we never thought of that. Because it's just not, the connections don't exist for whatever reason.
Right.
And it is a big river, but it's also a really big bridge. Although if you don't like crossing lanes of traffic, I can see why Groton people might not want to go to New London, because you do have to cross 5 lanes of traffic in the course of a mile to get off the bridge.
Well, the whole idea, as silly as it might seem, is this ferry boat idea was in fact a way to, at least in terms of the tourist trade and the hospitality trade, is in fact, because there are some beautiful things on both sides of the river, to have an opportunity to get people to see that and make it in a kind of fun way. So it's not driving on 995, which is a nightmare, but instead hopping on a ferry and going to different parts. And there was at one time discussion about having actually the ferry go up to Norwich because the river is right there. This whole idea of having maybe a triangle of shared activities, because all 3 places, at least historically, are interesting. There are quite a number of historical monuments in Groton, and of course there's museums in New London, and a little bit further out in Lyme. And so there was this idea that we could create a kind of a tourism based on arts and culture, which are really very much here. And with the coming of the Coast Guard Museum, there's that whole sense of let's bring it all together. But still, it's hard to get people to cooperate.
Well, and that was some idea with the New London Art Walk.
Oh, let's give a plug for this one. Yes, absolutely.
So New London has, depending on how you count it, between 8 and 15 galleries. And then there's some that are outside New London, and there's the Lyman Allen Museum. So there's a lot of art in New London.
Yes.
The MS-17 Art Project Gallery, they do fantastic things, bringing in work from all over the world. Expressiones also brings in a lot from outside. And there's a lot of great galleries that have local artists. Hygienic Art Gallery, of course, has great work from a lot of local artists. And I'm not really I'm not an artist myself.
Right.
I'm not a huge art aficionado, but I appreciate that it exists, and I appreciate its value for a community.
Right.
And when I first moved to the area, the first thing I noticed about New London was the murals. And that gave me the impression of, you go to New London, you can tell it's a city that's had better times in the past than it does now.
Yes.
There's a lot of empty storefronts and that, whatnot. But you see a lot of cities like that. You say, okay, rundown city. But when you see the murals, it says this city is trying to come back and trying to have a brighter future. Without that, it just looks like a rundown, beat-up city that is waiting for someone to come save it.
Right.
So that was the first thing I saw. It said, okay, this city, there's still some fire left in the furnace in this city. And I went to the Hygienic Art event in January. The huge event, 5,000 people come into town to listen to music, to see the gallery and all that.
Right.
And I asked them, I said, when's the art walk in town? Because there's little towns with, a coffee shop, 2 galleries, and 200 square foot bookstore that have art walks.
Right.
Little towns off in the woods have art walks. So New London, with 8, 12 or so galleries, obviously must have an art walk. Someone must have put this together. And they said, we don't have one. And they hadn't had one in 6 years. So I thought about it. I said, well, what does a art walk take? It requires galleries, which we have.
Right.
It requires someone to run around and talk to everyone, get them on the same page of when to do the art walk. Like a salesman, perhaps, which is what I do.
Yes.
And maybe some kind of map or promotional material to tie it together to say, you are now doing the art walk, go to these places. Well, I work for Minuteman Press, which is a print shop.
Perfect.
And we have designers on staff. So we did that. We got sponsors to pay for the maps. And there was an art walk. Now, it's not the greatest art walk in the world. It doesn't have a lot of, there's some art walks out there where they have, they set up a stage and they got bands coming in and food and this and that.
Right.
We don't have all that. We have art and a time to come see it, and they're all open, and a lot of refreshments available. And the idea was really a proof of concept to show if a guy who moved here 2 years ago, isn't really connected to the art scene,
right,
but just decided to make it happen, if I can put it together as a bi-monthly event, then imagine what the people who actually are in the scene, who know about the art, who know about the community, what they can put together. It's providing a framework.
Right.
So we ran it April, June, August, and the last one's going to be October.
What's the date on it?
October, third Thursday, I believe October 18th.
Okay, third Thursday of this next month. Yes, go ahead.
And it's from 5:30 to 8. And we've got about 20 galleries and businesses sign up. And a number of them, Hygienic usually just ties it into whatever they're already doing in their schedule, because their schedule's very busy.
Yes.
Marquee Art Gallery, they've always got like refreshments out and basically, showing the work that they have there. Firehouse Square uses something very, very nice for it. Studio 33 also always goes all out with a spread. And a number of the others are also very active. I know MS-17, our project gallery, they have beautiful work from all over the world. Right. And so they had that. And actually, I liked what they did 2 months ago at the last walk. They took basically a sheet of newsprint and rolled it out 20 feet long and had charcoal pencils. And everyone who came in was encouraged to draw something on it.
Oh, that's cool. Yes.
And I particularly liked it because I had my 2-year-old daughter with me, and they're like, well, she needs to draw something. Right. And so, she actually, there's little scribbles from...
As long as she didn't need it, that's fine, yes.
Yep, and it actually is interesting because they were like, and you need to draw something. I said, oh, I don't draw. And they were like, yes, you do. Sure. Do it. And, I stuff, you could tell what I was trying to draw. You may have thought that she drew it, 2-year-old, but it is very interesting because it is, very interactive, simple. Right. Very simple, but interactive kind of took someone like me who thinks, oh, I'm not artistic, and got me to actually do something artistic, which is a very, they know what they're doing over there. Okay. But it's great because it gets a lot of people, and there's a lot of people in the community of New London who really want to be part of something, want to do something. Charlie King, who runs the Hive, which is the skate shop. Okay. He is a huge, very active in the community. So for a couple of the art walks, he's brought in a DJ, and he's had various things going on. He's actually working on getting a skate park built in New London. Okay. To give the kids a place to stay out of trouble and
and play. Yep. Right.
Because Groton has one, of all places, but New London doesn't.
Competition.
Yeah. But
Unheard of that they could actually cooperate.
yeah.
You know?
Well, but it's one of those things where it needs to be local.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
If you can't get there by skateboard,
Right.
it doesn't exist.
Right, and you really don't want them on the 95 bridge.
Yeah.
Although you might have seen some of them.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's kind of tough to skateboard 5 miles. It's not really that kind of vehicle.
Right. Is the art walk on Bank Street?
It's Bank and State.
Bank and State. Okay.
Just because where the businesses are, it's more heavily on Bank. It technically runs from the Firehouse Square Gallery, or the gallery of Firehouse Square, all the way up to the library.
Okay.
Although it kind of tapers out as you get down the State Street end. Because we've got MS-17, the Hive, and Bravado, which is the barbershop.
Okay.
They all have things going on. And then I don't think there's anything on this month's map until you get to the library, just because of where the businesses are.
Right.
I tried to rearrange them, but they weren't willing to move.
Is the guard involved with it?
The guard has not been involved yet.
Okay.
Which is a simple matter of trying to get in touch with them. And they do so much.
Well, they do. They do.
Trying to.
Yeah, and of course they have done art in their lobby.
Yes.
I mean, so they are very familiar with what's going on in the art scene and big promoters of it as well.
And that's it. I hope for 2017 when more members of the community kind of take it up from me. Because my real value is I could run it and say, this is how it should run. It should be the third Thursday of every other month, and it should have art involved. Okay.
Right.
This is as much as I can do. Doing it in 2017 would be just kind of belaboring the point of me doing it. So working with a couple of different stakeholders in the community to try to hand it off to them. It's kind of like, here's the model. Because once you have that schedule, once you know it's going to be this day, this day, this day, and this day.
So it's always going to be the third Thursday. I like that. Third Thursday, I got it. I like the alliteration. Every other month.
Yeah, an even-numbered month. So 4, 6, 8, 10.
Oh, good. Make it easy.
Yep, not February or December, obviously, because nobody really wants to walk around looking at art in February and December.
But they will in January?
No, they will in April.
April, okay.
Yeah, by April it's pretty nice.
Yes, it certainly can be.
By April you're looking to get out.
Right, and you know it's interesting what you say, Michael, about the fact that you're here 2 years, and I think about the things that I live in Westerly and know I have more familiarity with it. It sometimes takes a pair of outside eyes to say, well, wait a minute, look at this. We have all these galleries, and we have all this wonderful art, and we have so many other artists who are not necessarily in the galleries who might be interested, and we have a lot of people who might come here. The city's not that big, but the outside community, the ring, is very large, and it 95 takes you the whole length of the sound, so you can pick it up along the way.
Yeah. And especially a city like New London, which is much nicer now than apparently it was before I got here.
Yes.
From what I'm told.
Yes.
I only got here in 2014, so when I got here, it was pretty decent. But I have heard stories that prior to that, it was maybe a place you didn't want to go for dinner or go for any reason at all. And I think what happens is that people get that impression. The last time they went was 2005.
Right.
They had a bad experience. They're like, we're never going back there again.
Right.
And geographically, it's an area you can't avoid. You can't necessarily avoid downtown Old Saybrook. If you're taking Route 1 to Westbrook, you're going to go through or at least adjacent to it. You can't really avoid downtown Westerly if you're off the highway. You're going to Charlestown. Yeah,
Charlestown, or you're going to Squamica Beach. Or
any of those places, you have to go through downtown.
Yes.
So you'll at least pass through it periodically, whereas you can pretty well avoid downtown New London geographically, no matter what you're going. Unless you're going to Ocean Beach. Most other places, there's another way around through Waterford or just not through it at all, because mostly it's against the water. So it has that issue that someone may have had a bad experience there 10 years ago, never went back to that bad experience, and unless something lures them back into the town to see it, you can clean up the city all you want, but if nobody sees it, then it hasn't served the purpose. So
the other thing that's interesting to me, I was actually was educated as an urban planner, so I see cities like New London and Norwich as these kind of ideal places to remake, because at one time they had great glory, And they, in Norwich's case, it has gorgeous architecture. And New London has a lot of art and art museums and other, like the Custom House is right there on Bank Street. And there is the Amtrak train station.
Yep.
And somehow all those pieces haven't yet been pulled together. But it takes someone like an outsider like yourself to come in and kind of shake it all up and say, you know, what the heck? We should be doing some more stuff out here. The other thing that always amazes me, there are some lovely restaurants in Groton. And that in Westerly is what started things going.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of restaurants and bar-type places came in, given it a chance, and have been quite successful as more people know about it. And there's a downtown association, and most of it still remains not shops, but still remains mostly bars and restaurants. But that's fine because people linger, and that's good with art. Because you linger, you have a drink, you have a dinner. If it's a decent enough night, you feel comfortable, you feel safe, it's well lit, you walk around, and you can do a lot of stuff like that.
And actually, another business that I should give a shout out to in New London, who's along those lines, is a company called the Fog Factory, which is a vaping shop.
Oh, okay.
And you know, vaping is one of the very misunderstood things because the technology is very new. But it's actually primarily it's seen as a smoking alternative.
Yes.
Because it's funny, under federal laws, they're not allowed to say it, but I can say it because I don't work for them and I don't sell it. It is significantly safer than smoking. Is it completely safe? Maybe, maybe not. But it's 99% safer than lighting a tube of plants and chemicals on fire and inhaling into your lungs. Surprisingly, and then there's become a big culture around vaping, and it's a lot of the they're called juices that you put into the vaping units. They don't have any nicotine in them at all. It's just about the flavor and the experience, and for former smokers, the hand to mouth habit. And it's actually very interesting when I got to know people in that community. I expected this is their business. I thought they'd be like, yeah, you should try it. One of them asked me, do you smoke? And I said, no. They said, don't start vaping then. There's no reason to. They are perfectly happy to just take the smokers, get them off cigarettes into vaping, and that's as much as they want to grow there. They don't want to. They don't foresee growing this to where everyone's vaping. Right. They don't want that. They just want the people who are into it. Great. If you're not into it, that's fine. Yeah. If you are into it, they like you to use their products.
Yes.
But that's how business is. But it's but the store they have there. When I talked to the owner, Alex and Jeff are the owners. When I talked to Alex about it, he said his mission was to provide a place where people would come and hang out and socialize and not get in trouble. Because especially where you've got a lot of Navy guys, they're young, they may be away from home for the first time, and especially when they turn 21, suddenly they can go out and drink. And the military tends to, they tend to have very gung-ho attitude because that's what the military is about, which is good. But when you combine that with alcohol, sometimes that doesn't encourage the best decisions.
All right.
So his idea was a place where people, students, military guys, everyone could come and hang out and get the bar experience without the intoxication of alcohol. Because especially with a Navy guy, if they get into a fight or they get a DUI or whatever, that has repercussions on their career.
Yes.
Which can be very serious.
Right.
So if you go into the Fog Factory, about a sixth of their space is selling space with counters and stuff for sale. And the rest of it is couches, and they got a big TV with an Xbox set up. And I don't know if they ever got it working, but they have one of those tabletop Pac-Man machines and some other couches hang out. And there's and as they've grown over time, there's more and more people hanging out in there. But just they're hanging out, they're chatting, they're vaping. Because you open the door and it smells like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory because it's all the flavors are like fruit flavors and mint and chocolate and whatnot. So you open the door, it's just this amazing cacophony of delicious smells. But it's just a really pleasant environment, the kind of place where people will be hanging out, and then they get hungry. They're going to go up to Parade Pizza or go to go to one of the other many restaurants right around there.
This is on Bank Street too.
Yeah, yes, right on Bank Street. It's near Parade Plaza. It's like 6 or 7 doors down.
All right.
So it's that kind of place where people can hang out, and when they're hanging out, a few things happen. They start to go to the restaurants.
Right.
They start to shop at the other shops if there are other shops in the area, and they also start to think of it as their town. So maybe they'll pick up trash on the street when they see it. Maybe if they see something happening that shouldn't be, they might call the police because this is my town, and that shouldn't be happening in my town. So I'm going to make a phone call. And that's how, the town gets clear. Maybe someone's sitting around and says, what we need in town? We need a jewelry shop. We need a pet store. I don't know. We need whatever.
Right.
And there's an empty space right across the street from my favorite vape shop or from my favorite bar or from whatever. I'm going to rent that space out. And that's how it develops, by having those kinds of places, whether it is a bar or a vape shop or a coffee shop or any of those. And I think New London's really doing well with growing those kinds of spaces.
Is the, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but is that the Main Street organization, is it also involved in trying to revitalize down there with these other activities that are going on?
It is. They are limited in their resources.
Okay.
With the resources they have, they're doing tremendous work. Actually, I've been talking to them. They're one of the groups I've been talking to about taking over the art walk.
artwork.
Yep. But they're very limited in terms of the resources they have for money and person power and whatnot. But they run the food stroll, which is that does actually really much more effectively than the Art Walk ever has to bring people to New London.
Right.
Which is it's a great thing.
And there's others to copy, because every freaking little town in this area has some kind of food walk. So so Mystic has its big thing that goes on. Now it's at the Mystical Village. And so, that's
downtown Mystic still has one too.
Yes, now they're now they're gonna start that again.
Yep. They actually ran a couple weeks ago. Yeah, Mystic Eats versus Taste of Mystic.
Taste of Mystic again. Why not compete instead of?
There's a long story about that.
I know.
I
didn't want to get into the politics, but it just absolutely.
Yep.
The food is a big thing. Of course, Westerly has things like that with food as well. All these little towns.
And one of the great things about Food Stroll versus a Taste of, because actually I come from the Amherst area, which is where the first Taste of event was, Taste of Amherst.
Okay. Amherst, Massachusetts?
Amherst, Massachusetts,
okay.
Yeah, you can tell because if it's Massachusetts, Amherst with a silent H, and all the rest are Amherst with a pronounced H.
Oh, very good. I'll remember that.
So
since my daughter lives in East Amherst in New York State.
Yes, that's Amherst. Yeah. There's actually, when I was up there, so there's Amherst with a silent H, and then there's Northampton, which is spelled Northampton because there's one H between them.
Yes.
And at one point they had a ceremonial giving of the H, where the town manager from Amherst met with the mayor of New London and gave them this big H. They're like, we don't need it, you do, here. It's this ceremonial giving of, see, that's an example of two towns across a river talking to each other. There's even another town between them they still talk.
Yes.
But what's great about the stroll is it actually makes you stroll downtown. Because with the other kind of events, you go to a site.
Yes.
And you might see, this food is great, but you have no idea where it came from because you're not at the restaurant, you're at a booth.
Right.
And maybe if they're really on point with their marketing, they gave you a menu or they gave you a flyer or a coupon or something.
Right.
But a lot of them, they're so focused on making sure they have food to put out and they have a chalkboard menu and the branding's not consistent. So you're not able to track down that restaurant again. So it doesn't give the follow-on sales that it should.
Or could.
Whereas a food stroll, if you are going to, if you're visiting the Hot Rods during the food stroll, you are trying Hot Rods food in Hot Rod space.
Right.
So you may go to a bunch of places, you may have a few drinks and forget where you are, but at least you were there. So when you come back 2 weeks later, like, I remember this place. They had really good whatever.
Right.
During the food stroll. So that's great because it gets people into town. And especially for a place like New London, where it has come a long way, it actually makes them walk around and say, "Wow, this is really, really a nice area." And they actually do a lot of things. There's a food stroll. Barbara Neff runs a lot of great events. She's part of the food truck festival, which puts you out of downtown into the food trucks, which aren't local, but at least it puts you in town to realize something's happening there. They have the IM Festival, which is a music festival. They've got Sailfest, of course.
Sailfest being the very big thing.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah, so there's all kinds of things to pull in, which is definitely good. And anything that makes someone come back into town who hasn't been there for a while.
Right. You know, the always criticism of Mystic and New London, I think, and even the Groton Fall Festival, is the lack of parking. You know, people don't want to wait for a shuttle bus. People want to just park their car.
That reminds me, so I have my show in WBLQ open for business, and I was interviewing someone there and we were talking about downtown Westerly, and they said that Westerly doesn't have a parking problem. Westerly has a walking problem. Because there's enough parking in Westerly, and likewise there's enough parking in New London, but people don't want to walk more than the distance from
their car to the store.
Right. And actually, if you look at like a Walmart parking lot, the distance from the furthest parking space to the store is the length of most of State Street. Yeah. So, but it's through a parking lot, so it's a different mentality. Even if you go to the mall. If you park in the space, you'll probably find, by the time you've walked from there to the store, you have easily walked from Parade Plaza to probably Firehouse Square. It's the same distance.
Well, you have to, but then you have to reset the mindset about getting people to go ahead and walk. And there is, you're right, in terms of the distance. But people don't think that way.
Well, and same thing with the Fall Festival, since that is putatively why I'm here.
Yes.
So there is plenty of parking for the Fall Festival, which is at Grasso Tech, and there is a shuttle.
Yes.
And it's about, the shuttle is faster than walking. But the shuttle runs constantly, and it takes 7 to 12 minutes to get from car to event. And again, with our car mindset, we're like, I can't see the place I'm going when I park my car. It's too far away. But it's 7 to 12 minutes to get there in a shuttle. You're not even walking.
Right.
And then you can easily spend 5 hours at the festival. So yeah, it took you 12 minutes to get there, but then you spent 5 hours there, and it's only another 12 minutes because the shuttle's always there.
Well, I'll give you an example. I participated in some events at the Big E. So a few years ago, when you went to the Big E and you were considered a quote vendor, you had this preferred parking, which was right there right on the grounds.
Yep.
They changed it a couple of years ago, and now you have to take a shuttle. And I thought to myself, I was there last night, and I thought to myself, oh, this is really going to be a pain. I'm going to have to leave my car someplace. I'm going to have to hop on a little shuttle, and I wasn't sure what the configuration was. I knew it wasn't going to be a car. Was it going to be a big bus? Was it going to be a little bus? I had no idea. And then I'd have to wait for it. Well, I have to tell you, it was the best thing in the world because the traffic is unbelievable. So rather let the shuttle guy driver with his 12 people in here, let him do it. And in fact, that means there are 11 less cars on the road in terms of interfering with the rest of the traffic.
But yeah.
So, but people were complaining, but then they gave people a much better than expected experience. And now there'll be, I really think there's going to be complaints.
Yeah.
Because, all right, you can't get away from the traffic, but you don't have to be the driver.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Americans get very uncomfortable when we can't see our cars. When the car is out of sight of the building you're in, might wander off on me. I don't know. But yeah, no, with the Fall Festival, that's one thing they've done very well is have plenty of parking, and the shuttle. And again, you don't need to worry about because the alternative for most events is parking over here, and there's parking over there, and there's parking over here, and you're driving through this lot, and you're driving through that. I went to a trade show in Providence the other day, and there were 2 parking garages. So I had to drive into one parking garage, go all the way around, up the ramp, all the way around, back out, and I told the guy at the gate the garage is full, and gave him my ticket back, and he says, yeah. And then I went. He says, garage down there. So I had to drive down there, whereas I could have just as easily parked, a mile away and had a shuttle.
Right.
And that would have been so much easier driving up, down, up and down, up and down. So, with the, and then there will be volunteers in the parking lot too to guide people.
Because that's the whole point. It has to be this kind of pleasant, memorable experience, and then people are less likely to, because that happens to be in our car-oriented life, especially if we're coming with a couple of kids. We figure, oh no, and in fact, it'll turn out to be better because once you get the kids and the stroller on the shuttle, get them to the place, you're just what you're saying. They can stay for a few hours, and they don't have to worry about the car and where it's parked and and all that kind of stuff. So make it a memorable experience in terms of getting on a shuttle.
Yep.
And lo and behold, I don't know if it'll really change minds, but people will not see it as such a negative.
Yep.
Because people have complained about things like that, strolls that they have in downtown Westerly. Oh, there's no place to park, so I'm not going to come. And that's not true.
Yep.
It's not true. It's and once you leave it, the whole strolling thing can be part of the event. It's get out and you don't have to be into fitness just to enjoy, as long as the weather isn't too crummy, to enjoy that.
And I would say in Westwood, I've never had trouble parking there.
I don't either because I know where to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
But even like I can often find parking on the street, but if not, there's a number of parking lots all around. But again, a lot of the parking lots, they either look like they're private or they're behind something or they're through a secret fog of mist.
Right. They don't look that way. Well, because one of the things that people are accustomed to when they dine is that the restaurant has parking in the rear. And that experience you don't get a lot of.
Right.
And, listen, if you lived in New York City, you wouldn't get it either. But people don't have that expectation. They have the expectation is that I go to a restaurant, no problem parking because there's a little alley and we do have, certainly in Westerly, some restaurants that have that kind of parking, but very, very few. So, that's what the community criticism has been about the Groton Fall Festival.
But I think the other thing that people don't realize, sort of as a benefit to that kind of environment where you need to park a little further away, is that thing creates those chance encounters. One thing I loved about New London when I first came to it, now when I first came to the area, I, for a brief time, took over the Monte Cristo bookshop. For the 2 months that it was experimenting with being collective, didn't pan out because it had enough challenges. It was too late in the process to try to revive it that way.
That's how I know you.
Yeah, but I found that I would walk. I think at one point I walked from the bookshop down to the water, ran into 5 people I knew on the sidewalk. You don't find that in your car.
No.
If you find 5 people you know in your car unexpectedly, that's a whole different kind of.
That's a real experience.
That's a whole different kind of experience. But the same thing, going to the Groton Fall Festival, you go to the parking lot and you might run into people you know and see your neighbors in the shuttle, or meet people you know and you get talking. Oh, where do you live? I live on this street. Oh, that's one street over from me. We're neighbors, and you have no idea. You've never seen them before. You've been neighbors for 10 years. So those kinds of things, and same thing with if you're in any kind of downtown area, walking from the parking lot to the restaurant. That's where you run into people. And that's where you get that downtown Main Street feel that you're not just living on an island, which so many the suburban nightmare, so to speak, of and honestly, when I was younger, that was something I was always afraid of. Is that when I grew up, I would end up in this lifestyle where it'd be like me, my wife, my kids, and maybe we'd see their teachers, I'd see coworkers. And I might see my, bank manager now and then. And other than that, I wouldn't know anyone. Right. Because we'd be isolated, surrounded by people. And by having all these downtown areas and all these events, I avoid that isolation because I get out and see people and, casual encounters. Because you don't always want to call someone up and be like, hey, let's do something. It's nice just kind of walking down the street and bump into somebody. Right. And you don't get that if you can park, go in, get back to your car, get out. You need those. So
I want to thank my guest, Michael, for providing us some information. Just repeat again the 2 big events coming up in October.
So the Groton Fall Festival, October 8th. There's more information on that on grotonbiz.com.
Okay, and that is Columbus weekend? Or is it not?
May or may not be Columbus weekend. I don't think it is.
All right.
Maybe it is.
October 8th.
Definitely October 8th.
Saturday, October 8th.
Should have at least researched the calendar before coming on here.
From
11 to 5.
11 to 5.
Yep, and it is well worth, some people say it's going to come for an hour or two. It is well worth coming for the day because there's over 100 vendors. So you will not get to all of them in the 6 hours.
Right, and you'll get fed, and there's bathrooms.
And there's some great entertainment, including, especially if you like watching good mock combat, we will have some sword fighters there doing actual sword fight combat, possibly as many as 3 groups. There'll also be some karate demonstrations. That sounds like a very martial event. Cheerleading demonstration. There's going to be a group doing owls, with an owl demonstration. So all kinds of great stuff there.
Okay.
And then the other is New London Art Walk. It's third Thursday. Third Thursday in October, which I believe is October 18th.
Okay.
In downtown New London. That's from 5:30 to 8. And basically visit any of the galleries, and they all have the map there. And just follow the map.
Just follow the map.
Travel around. And
Travel around.
It's all free unless you want to buy some art.
Yes,
That's
which is exactly is what people want.
Yes.
Right. So I thank Michael for coming, and then I wanted to do a little shout out for myself. It's funny that Michael actually our original connection happened to be with the Monte Cristo bookstore, which was a bookstore in downtown New London, an independent bookstore. And for many of my TV audience, you might know that under the pen name Anastasia Goodman, I write mystery novels. I call that the Sasha Perloff series. And from those mystery novels, I have created a play, a kind of a performance piece to show you a little bit about Sasha Perloff. And what makes it interesting in our crazy, crazy world that we're living in is it deals with a very important issue of racism in America. Because Sasha Perloff is a Russian immigrant. He is a New York City police detective. And the books have a way of letting you walk in his shoes as he patrols a very diverse city, racially, ethnically, religiously. And I wanted it to be an opportunity. The play reading is free. There'll be 2 play readings this coming week and next week. One will be at the New London Public Library. You can see it September 29th at 6 p.m. It'll be a similar one at the Mystic Noank Library, October 4th at 7 p.m. And I want to start a dialogue about this whole issue of race in America. We have the opportunity to use fiction, in my case, the Sasha Perloff series, to talk about what it's like to be a white cop living in a diverse city. And the kinds of things that Sasha and his police partner, Jimmy Sutton, do, which may make you think about what it's like to be a cop. It is a difficult profession in our crazy kind of world, but at the same time, it leads people open to this whole issue of, are cops racist? Do we live in a racist society? I mean, we have the first African-American president. Do we still have lingering doubts? Is the President Trump and his campaign open up the floodgates for racist and segregationists to come forward and address ideas? So I want to start a dialogue. I want people to kind of think about what we're talking about here in America, in even our own communities. I mean, luckily, we haven't had any white cops shooting black suspects in our communities, but it's certainly been a national problem. And you just have to turn on the TV, you just open up your newspapers or magazines, and you'll see that this is what we're talking about. So I invite you, it's absolutely free. Come for a reading. Listen to me describe what it's like to be a policeman in this crazy world. And again, New London Public Library, September 29th at 6 p.m. and the Mystic Noank Library, October 4th at 7 p.m. These are free events, and it'll also give you an opportunity to get to come down to what Michael was discussing, the New London Public Library, a gem of a place in the community. It's not simply a library. Great libraries are not simply repositories of books anymore. They are community assets. They interact with the community. They make it possible for someone like me to do a play reading that invites you to start thinking about what it's like to live in our communities. The Mystic Noank Library, a community asset. These are not really just repositories of simply books. They have computers, they have the greatest, newest technology available, and they want the community involved. They want to get involved in the community. And these are really important things. So again, Mystic Library is located in a beautiful old building. And I think that if you've ever been in it, it's just astounding to look at it. And I want you to come on down, choose a date. It's the same presentation. It's a 30-minute presentation. It is not for children. The kind of dialogue and discussion that Sasha presents is not for children. We do use ethnic and racial slurs as a point of discussion, a point of saying things about what it's like to be black in America, what it's like to be white in America, where there's whole issues about how do we get along. You've been hearing discussions, even political discussions, on things like Donald Trump talking about stop and frisk, which was a New York City police procedure for many, many years, no longer in use. And Sasha will talk about what it's like to have stop and frisk. And the other kind of hidden elephant in the room when it talks about policing in America is this whole idea that our public servants, our policemen or firemen, they don't live in the communities where they serve. And there is a sense of not feeling a commitment and a part of the community that you're policing. And so Sasha talks about what it's like, especially for him, because he's a foreigner. He's an immigrant. He knows a different world, and he comes to the United States, and he sees a whole different kind of community. One things that he had expected to learn and to accept, and other things that he doesn't quite understand. And being a modern immigrant, you can go from New York to his home in his original home in St. Petersburg, Russia, and so you get that sense. These are the books: Death and Diamonds, and Loose Ends, the two books in the Sasha Perloff detective series, written under my pen name of Anastasia Goodman. And the books will be available. I can autograph them for you if you really engaged and like the Sasha Perloff character. I continue to write. There'll be many more books in the series. And it's a way for me to kind of leverage a couple of things. Number one, what it's like to live in the city, because I was trained as an urban planner, and I really love cities, little ones as well as some of the gigantic ones out there. And then it also gives you a sense as to what it's like to see our country through the eyes and the senses of a Russian immigrant. They have been, they've come here in droves, in hundreds of thousands, and with them they bring a different perspective. And Russian immigrants aren't any different than Dominican immigrants or Chinese immigrants, in the sense that they have certain expectations about our country, but oftentimes there's a kind of a collision between what they expect and what happens. So again, I invite you to come. Free play reading, Sasha Perloff Detective, at the New London Library, September 29th at 6 p.m., the Mystic Noank Library, October 4th at 7 p.m. I guarantee you it'll be an interesting discussion, and I need you there to make it even more interesting. So this is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer of Community Culture Showcase. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's kind of been a little diverse kind of activities here. I want to also thank Michael for coming here and giving a big shout out to the city of, well, I won't even say city, town of Groton, for our wonderful business community, and to get out there to the Fall Festival, and also to do a little strolling for the art world in New London.
Yep, both events are free.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I hope to see you again, and enjoy the fall. There's so many wonderful activities here in our community. That's it for now. Harriet Grayson.